Hello, I am Frank Rusek. Daughter Shanann Watts and her children were murdered. They were killed by Shannon's husband and the children's father, Chris Watts. Just dealing with this type of tragedy is more than a family should bear. Piled on top of pain and the grieving of this devastating loss, our family has been subject to horribly. Cruelly abused, outright bullying, and on a daily basis. Our family, including Shannon and her children and our grandchildren, have been ridiculed, demeaned, slandered, mocked in the most vicious ways you can imagine. We have been subject to false accusations, fake Facebook accounts, hate speeches, and constant stream of ugly, evil insults and attacks. Every time we turn around, there is someone trying to capitalize on our tragedy. We have been subject to threats on our lives, all because we are victims in painful tragedy.
She posted everything. The school runs, the dance parties, the quiet moments sitting beside her daughters, just watching them draw. Her phone was her canvas. Her family, the art. She spoke openly about her past. Lupus. Divorce. Struggles with self-worth. How she found her footing again. How she met someone who made her believe in love. Chris Watts wasn't just her husband. He was the man she credited with saving her. Their wedding videos showed her crying as she read vows. Their pregnancy announcements showed genuine laughter. And when the girls were born, Shanann was the kind of mother who soaked up every second, messy hair, sleepless nights, and all. She turned her life into a message that no matter what you've been through, joy is possible. She built a business from her phone, connected with women across the country, encouraged them, pushed them, celebrated them. But after her death, those same videos, those same posts, became ammunition. Clips of her hugging her children were slowed down, analyzed. Her words picked apart. Her tone judged. They said she was too controlling. That she overshared. That she emasculated him. They called her a narcissist. They forgot she was dead. And they forgot that every word they typed, every theory they posted, landed on the screens of her parents, her brother, her friends, people who loved her, who couldn't even say her name without breaking. Shanann lived out loud. And for that, she was punished. In the court of public opinion, grief wasn't enough. Innocence wasn't enough. Being murdered wasn't even enough. She was no longer a woman. No longer a mother. No longer a victim. She was content. This isn't just about a case. This is about how we treat the dead. And what it says about the living. It started slowly. A few stray comments under news articles. Anonymous usernames questioning the timeline, the emotions, the tone in her father's voice. At first, it seemed like noise, background static in the chaos of public grief. But it grew louder. The funeral had barely passed. Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Rusek, were still reeling. They hadn't even begun to process what had been taken from them, their daughter, their grandchildren, their future, when the strangers came. Not to console. Not to support. But to accuse. They said Shanann never existed. They said Frank was acting. They called Sandra part of a cover-up. They claimed the tears at the press conference were forced. That the emotion in their voices was rehearsed. Then came the videos. Dozens at first. Then hundreds. Clips with bold titles. Proof the Watts case was a hoax, the Ruseks are lying, crisis actors exposed. Creators uploaded hour-long breakdowns of the Ruseks interviews, pausing on every blink, every breath, every pause, twisting grief into performance, pain into deception. Some viewers believed it. Others didn't care if it was true. The videos spread. Views turned into shares. Shares turned into revenue. The more outrageous the claim, the higher the watch time. And so it escalated. Emails arrived. Then messages. then threats. People found Frank's workplace, found Sandra's Facebook. They sent images of coffins, told them to dig up Shanann's grave to prove she was ever real. They questioned Bella and Celeste's birth certificates. They sent screenshots of morgue photos. They told Shanann's brother he was part of the act, playing the grieving sibling for likes. They weren't just defaming the dead. They were stalking the living. And the platforms let it happen. YouTube videos stayed up for months, even years. Algorithms recommended them. They appeared next to real news. They were treated as equal, as valid, as just another side of the story. Frank pleaded publicly, "Please let us grieve in peace." He was ignored. In one video, a creator paused on a clip of Sandra sobbing at her daughter's memorial. He mocked her, laughed, called it Oscar-worthy, then asked his audience to donate to support his research. This wasn't investigation. This wasn't journalism. This was entertainment, built on the bones of someone else's suffering. And there was a sex? They were left to pick up the pieces, to relive the worst moments of their lives every time they opened a browser. Every time they heard Shanann's name spoken by a stranger who never knew her, never cared to. This wasn't just harassment. It was desecration. Of memory. Of truth. Of dignity. And there was no end in sight. What happens when justice is served, but cruelty keeps coming? What happens when a family's deepest grief becomes someone else's hobby? What happens when the internet refuses to let you mourn? Stay with us. Because it's about to get worse. The confession should have ended it. Chris Watts admitted to everything. No courtroom drama. No hung jury. No ambiguity. He told detectives where he buried Shanann. He led them to the oil tanks that held Bella and Celeste. The autopsy reports were released. The timeline was confirmed. The motive, if you could call it that, was laid bare in cold, flat statements. For most, it was horrifying. For Shanann's family, it was a grief so vast it couldn't be spoken. It took their breath, their sleep, their ability to imagine life ever returning to normal. But for others, it was just a new chapter. Claimed Shanann never died. That she and the kids were in witness protection. That the whole thing was a psychological operation orchestrated by the government. Or by Thrive. Or by the media. The theories contradicted each other, but it didn't matter. The goal wasn't truth. It was traction. Meanwhile, Frank and Sandra were burying their daughter and granddaughters. They stood before 3 caskets. They held each other up because they couldn't do it alone. And they did it all in public, because the case had been public from the start. Frank read a statement to the press. His hands shook. His voice cracked. "We just want to remember our daughter with love," he said. "Please let us grieve." But no one listened. Instead, those words were clipped, remixed, uploaded into new videos. "Notice how he stumbles over his words," one commenter wrote. "He's hiding something." They said Shanann was abusive. They said she pushed Chris too far. They pulled videos from her social media and pointed to her tone, her posture, the way she looked into the camera. "See?" they said. She was the problem. The narrative twisted. The victim was reframed as the villain. The man who murdered his family was recast as a pawn. And the people who loved Shanann most were recast as liars. The Rizasek family stopped reading the comments. Then they stopped reading the news. But the content kept coming. The Rizaseks tried to live their lives. Tried to heal. But grief was no longer private. Every moment of sorrow came with 1,000 eyes. Every time they spoke, it was dissected. Every time they cried, it was judged. Even after a full confession, some refused to believe it. They targeted Shanann's memory. They targeted her family. And they wouldn't stop. This wasn't just misinformation. This was abuse. And it was only getting worse. Chris Watts was sentenced to life in prison. No possibility of parole. No appeals. No courtroom theatrics. Just a quiet finality, as the gavel fell and the legal system closed the book on the man who ended the lives of his pregnant wife and their 2 daughters. For the public, it marked the end of the case. For the news cycle, it was a last headline before the next story took its place. But for the Rusecks, the ending was never the end. They left that courtroom with empty arms, with an ache that would outlive them. They didn't get to go home and find peace. They didn't get to mourn in silence. Because every time they tried to disappear from the public eye, the internet pulled them back in. The harassment didn't taper off after the conviction. It escalated. They received anonymous emails filled with violent threats. Messages accusing them of being frauds, of profiting off their daughter's death. People stood outside their home and filmed their mailbox. They were sent screenshots of videos claiming Frank Rusek was in on it. That he knew the murders were staged. That he had rehearsed his grief. Imagine mourning your daughter and getting death threats. Imagine watching your grandchildren be buried, and then watching someone use their faces to sell ads. This is what the Rusek family lives with. Every day. They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't want a spotlight. They wanted quiet. A porch to sit on. A place to remember Sean and without fear of who might be watching. A space where Bella and Cece could be spoken of without someone twisting their names. They go to vigils. They light candles. They wear her name on bracelets and t-shirts. They look for signs. In songs. In dreams. In the wind. They carry the weight of memory. And the burden of defending it. Because in a world where lies go viral, telling the truth becomes a full-time fight. And the people left behind after tragedy aren't just grieving. They're surviving. Against an audience that refuses to let go. Chris Watts will never walk free again. That's the only part of this story with finality. But for the Rusecks, justice is ongoing. It's in every moment they choose to speak Shanann's name. Every time they shield her memory from lies. Every time they call out cruelty disguised as curiosity. They never wanted to be public figures. They wanted peace. But they were dragged into a new kind of war, one not fought in courtrooms, but on platforms. On timelines. On screens. They'd become quiet advocates for truth, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. In a world that rewards speculation over compassion, it falls on the victims' families to correct the record, again and again. What does it mean to mourn in the modern world? It means knowing your child's name can be used by someone chasing clicks. It means watching your deepest loss turned into a monetized narrative. It means reliving trauma every time you log on. And still, they carry Shanann forward. Bella. Cece. Baby Nico. They speak of them often. With love. With pride. With a strength no parent should have to find. They don't ask for your pity. They ask for something much harder to give in today's world, your humanity. Where do you draw the line between curiosity and cruelty? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but keep it respectful. These are real people. This is real pain. If this story moved you, if it made you think, like the video. Subscribe for more deep, human-centered storytelling. And share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's start a new kind of conversation. One grounded in empathy, truth, and accountability. If you or someone you know is facing abuse, harassment, or violence, there is help. You are not alone. Choose compassion. And thank you for watching.